happening. So that the app has gone into the background, the app has been brought up to the foreground, or um, when has the app's cache been cleared or anything like that. So the main part, so basically, like your app is sitting inside the Android system. So uh, the main part that is required for this is, so every Android operating system needs a entry point. So Android needs to know what should I be working with uh, when I send the app to the background, or when we put the app to the foreground, and that's called an activity. So um, while like activity might be very foundational, very basic, but it is very important. Once you understand activity very clearly, you'll have a very good understanding of how an Android app works, and things that, so in today's world, I'll be very honest, things that ChatGPT cannot do, you will be able to understand better, because you'll be able to understand why there'll be memory leaks when an app goes into the background and comes back up, why there might be a UI slightly change or some crash or anything. So once you really understand what an activity does, how it responds to certain things, you really have a control um, over your app. And I mean, then you can genuinely be called as a very good Android app programmer. I'm still learning it. I'm still trying to master it, but I would highly recommend going into detail about this. So, um, basically, what is an activity? It's a screen on your app. Every screen has an activity behind it. Let's say we use LinkedIn on a daily basis. All of us might have used LinkedIn. The home screen, or where the feed comes in, that itself is an activity. Let's say you go to your profile, where it shows your badge, your name, everything, where you've studied, where you're working, that is an activity. Um, or if you go into the job search portal, that itself is an activity. So every um, every screen will have only one activity, because Android needs to know what is the entry point, what am I dealing with. But it can have multiple XMLs broken down into but one activity that controls the entire screen that's being shown at one point. So usually when we start a default project, Android starts with something called the main activity. No matter how big of a app you're building, it is always going to have a main activity. And Android has built it such that it's already configured the script, so that Android knows that always look for the main activity, and that's going to be your home page. So today in this app, we're going to be mainly working with one activity, that is just one screen. So um, yeah, and then like over the time, we're going to be moving into navigating into screens, and how we can work with multiple screens, how data can be passed from one screen to the other. So, like just to so just to wrap it up, activity is like the main of your code. So you write a main function that in any Python code, Java code, or anything that helps you sort of tell that this is where you start, and from there you go consecutively. Whereas Android, it's activity. And the second thing is Android doesn't go in a sequential manner. It goes based on user like input. It doesn't load anything that happens when I click on the radio button, that is kilometers to miles, unless I click on it. Only then it loads it, and then does the computation if I do click on it. Otherwise, it's never going to, unless there's any input, any user interaction, it's never going to act on it. So there are three parts we need to understand in a Android project. So when you first create your project, it's going to be a little overwhelming, because there are going to be a lot of files and a lot of things that you're going to be flooded with. But we only care about three things. One is the activity. The second one is the XML, and the third one is sort of the Kotlin code that handles the logic. So the logic behind that kilometers to miles is this calculation that is or kilograms to pounds is 60 into XYZ. That part is mainly where the Kotlin meat lies in. So um, that's what. So if we have to think about an app where we have to where we have to break it up, one is we have the activity that interacts with the Android OS. Second is we have the XML. So XML usually shows what to show, and it doesn't tell how to react or what to do when I show this. It basically just uh, it's very similar to HTML if you worked with HTML. um it it just shows it just tells what I need to show, what is the color, what is the font, what is the animation, what is the transition, is this a radio button or is it a text or is it a normal button, do I want it center aligned, do I want it vertically aligned, or how do I want it to be seen on the screen. It has no understanding of what happens when you click on it or anything, so that's where Kotlin comes in. So yeah, this is going to be very similar to HTML, so you don't need to worry about you're learning another framework or another language. It's not. It's going to be, and the best thing about Android Studio is it allows you to work with it here as well, where you can just move this. This is a text view,
So,
and you
Shubhra,
can
you
move
said
it
it's very similar to HTML. Are you saying Kotlin is similar to HTML, or what is similar to HTML?
XML. XML.
XML is similar to HTML. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, Kotlin is purely logic. XML is what
Mhm.
purely UI, and that's very similar to HTML. So,
Okay.
um,
So,
only thing
if I
is,
understand right, you said once
mhm,
upon a time you were using Flutter, but now you are using native Android.
yeah.
What is that which made you move towards native Android?
Um, so to be honest, I moved there because of my job. But when I started using native Android, now if given a choice, I would choose native Android over Flutter. There are two, three very strong reasons. One is currently the cross-platform toolkits that are there are Flutter, React.js, and some other ones. But current with the current toolkits we have, the app size is very big because of these Flutter. Whereas native makes it, they have done it over decades. It is very compact. An app like this should be taking less than um, a few MBs, right? A few K, like less than an MB. It should be in a few KBs. Whereas Flutter can inflate this and make this into a good 30 MB app.
Yeah,
So,
Shiva, I can relate to this because got a very simple app created called Language Box, and it became
mhm,
80 MB, and the project
yeah,
became unviable to me. It was like a operation successful, patient died kind of situation because I cannot force
right.
a person to download a 80 MB APK. Okay. Mhm.
Exactly, especially when it's so expensive to move from a 256 GB to 512 GB phone. People are not very considerate by giving you so much space. So, especially let's say for the app that I'm working with at office is a trading app. It has hundreds of screens. It has the payment. It has the trading. So that in itself, even though it's built in native, is 100 plus MB. But if it was built in, Flutter would reach just monumentous amounts, which is not ideal for every user. So that is one thing. The second thing is um, Flutter versus native. The native maintainabilities are a lot easier. The backward compatibility that Android and that Kotlin does support is because Android's default language is Kotlin, and Flutter really has to work hard. I had built an app 3 years ago for Sangamon. If I open up the project right now, there's no way I can open and run the app directly. Even though I have the exact same environment set up, it gets very difficult. Android OS, it's still developing. And
So
also the
we
fourth,
have one person here in this team. His name is Svetnath. He is uh, doing the counterpart. He is a Swift programmer and is
oh
building
nice,
something on iOS. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe he's also, I think, a fan of native iOS development, and he did not go the Flutter way. Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any insight into that? Shweta, feel free to correct me if you feel like I'm going wrong anywhere. Um, Also, I realized even though it was cross-platform, it makes it easier on a very small app. When we go into detail of like a larger app that's scalable and deployable, uh, learning Flutter is not just enough. You need to really still learn and understand how an iOS system would work with Swift or with any app, and how Android system would work with the app. These two understandings are very important for you to make a very deployable app. Initial days, we don't realize it until the number of caches increase, number of users increase, WebSockets, APIs, and things like that. So it does start getting to you, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on it. I think as we go ahead, uh, we'll sort of realize the
Yeah,
ease
Shubha,
of
just
use
one
with Kotlin.
question to you. You said
Mm-hmm,
one of the simple apps is to convert centigrade to Fahrenheit. Okay.
mm-hmm.
According to you, if you have to do that now in front of us, how much time, if you don't need to stop for any explanation, how much time would it require for you to build that app?
We're going to be doing it today.
Uh,
Um, yeah, we're going to be walking through the code today. So when I built this took me about um, like 15 to 20 minutes to
okay, that's a
uh,
good indication. Suppose instead of centigrade to Fahrenheit, if I want a dollar to rupee, okay,
mhm,
and the
mhm,
dollar to rupee value not hard coded but coming from a Reserve Bank of India website, let's say,
mhm.
in which case it has to be definitely more than 15-20 minutes. So how much would that time be?
I think the more time would go into trying to get the API. Once we
Hmm.
get the API endpoint, that would still that would take maybe 5 minutes more to integrate it with it, but the research part takes a little more time just to
Okay.
make sure what
So
value you get
I
back,
hope
what
in
format is it
this
in.
project we will cover both things, right? One is standalone Android apps which does not require APIs, and maybe a few examples of
Yeah.
apps where the data comes in through an API. Am I right?
Yeah, we'll eventually move to where we have live data coming in. Um, I think progressively we'll move there. Right now, we'll
Okay. Yeah.
start with something
Yeah.
static.
You can
So
go ahead, Shiva.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, if any of you have any ideas by the end of actually at the end of this, think about an app you would like to build by the end of the 5 day, and all of you can start a personal project as well, and we can work together as to um, how to do it and like where to get started. So just to sorry, my battery's a little low. Yeah. Um, so we can get started with the with building the app. So basically, here we're going to be having an XML file that will have the edit text, that's the input, radio buttons, that are these three, and a submit button, that is the convert, and a result text that is not editable, but it will just show you the value. And this will be a heading. So this part, can anyone tell me what would we build this using from what we've just heard?
Sorry, what's the question? What?
This whatever I said, text, an edit text, that is a text input, radio buttons, a submit button, a result text.
Ah,
Um, what do you think we would be building this using? It's on the screen. The answer is something we've already spoken about. We have
ah.
Kotlin and we have XML and we have activity. What do you think the UI part we'll be building with. We'll be building with XML. Yeah. Oh yeah, perfect. So we'll be using XML to first like write the UI. So everyone has different ways of working, but just in a corporate setting, or if you have to really build a scalable app, I would recommend just taking a pen and paper or using Figma if you're comfortable with, just to uh, draw out the idea that you have in mind and make sure you start working with the XML after that and then go into logic because it is a coupled XML and Kotlin are pretty coupled. So once you do that, you will get a lot more clarity about what things you need to build in Kotlin and how you want to go about the app. So I had a very basic, you can see it here, a very basic drawing of this. I use pen and paper still, but Figma is always a great option if anyone wants to do it. So yeah, we'll get started with this. Basically, XML builds the screen, activity connects Kotlin and XML, and Kotlin has the logic behind it. So if anyone is doing this alongside with me in this session, please let me know. If not, then I'm just I'm not going to ask you to share your screen or anything, just to make sure that you are also on the same page. Yeah. So can everyone see my screen? Yeah. Uh, okay. So I'm just gonna show if you do try doing this tomorrow. So how to start a new project? You go into file, new. Um, I should share my. Yeah. Can you see my screen here? So when you create a new project, it's going to ask you for phone, tablet, Wear OS, television, automotive. Choose phone and tablet. Make sure you don't choose empty activity. Empty activity uses something called compose, Jetpack Compose, which we're not getting into right now. It is the modern way of building apps. It is very good, but it is a little more complex. So go for anything with views name. So empty views activity, basic views activity, anything like that, or just go with no activity. But always, if you go with no activity, make sure you create an activity called main activity name, and then mention it in the uh, Gradle script that this is the entry point. So go with next, and you enter a name for it. Let's say um, unit converter or just find a fancy name for it. Uh, Call it something nice. This is going to be the name of the app. This is also the name of the app that you see on the on your phone app bar, whatever you choose, right? That's the name of the app that you see. You can always go and change it back, but right now this is it. Always make sure this Kotlin DSL is selected. So we have two options, Groovy and Kotlin, and we're going to be sticking to native Kotlin. This is going to be dependent on your laptop configurations. I would always recommend a minimum of 7.0. There are multiple 11, 12. I would not recommend going into it. We need to make it such that most of the Android phones that are still existing in the world today should be able to run your app. So, yeah. And then just click on finish and you should be, yeah. Okay. So this is something that opens up. It is going to take a minute or two for you to let it settle, let it sort of download everything, and that's just downloading the tools you need, and that's okay. And once it does, it's this is the project. structure of your app, it's going to be so you have the main root directory that is the unit convert. You have the app directory that you're going to be working with. So app will have src main Java because eventually Kotlin does get converted into Java and then loads it into the app format. This is the package name that we gave, as you remember, com.example.unitconvert, and which it already has something called the main activity. So right now, this is the main activity that is the empty views activity. Basically, yeah. So this is the main activity that we have. So on create is what I mentioned that the Android operating system should know what it's talking to. So now we're telling that on create of the screen or on create of this activity, when the screen appears, what should happen? What are the things that should get triggered when we do that? So here we have the on create, and this is where we define that I wanted to use the XML file called activity underscore main. So as you see the set content view, line number 13 is the line that defines what the activity, what the XML file we're going to be using here. So yeah, um, and we'll be removing a lot of these lines about system bars and things like that, and we'll be working with the XML. So if I open the XML right here, um, sorry, it's a little stuck. Yeah, as you can see, build successful is done. That means the gradle build, that is the download of all the tools you need, all the dependencies you need is done. Um, so this is, oh, can you not see my screen? Just a second. Okay, let me stop sharing and share again. Mm, Can you see my screen now? Okay. Uh, oh no, Krishna, are you not able to see my screen? Okay, fine. Uh, change that. A lot of people are able to see. How about now? Sorry, I missed any reaction today. Okay, awesome.
Yes, we can see it.
You got it. Thank you. Um, so I'm not sure. I hope everyone got to see how to create a project. If anyone wants me to go through that again, please let me know. Just the main bullet point is that always choose empty views activity. Don't choose just empty activity that is not the project we're going for right now.
So the word
So
views should be there in one of the selected exam. I mean,
yeah,
formats. Okay.
that's right.
Yeah.
So, like a view binding. So there are two approaches to Android app building. One is through Compose or through view binding. Jetpack Composer does not use view binding, does not use XML, but we want to use XML, then we want to use view binding. So views is an important word that you need to look for. Basic views, empty views, anything. Just open an app. Oh no, Android project. So as I was mentioning that this is the main activity file. This is where the Kotlin code will go in. So two things will happen here. One is activity is going to connect your XML and the Kotlin code. That is that this button does this output, and the Kotlin code is going to be a logic. That is the conversion of Celsius to Fahrenheit or conversion of kilometers to miles or anything like that. So here the line number 13 is what we're going to be focusing on. That is a set content view. And this is the name of the XML file that we'll be working with. This is a basic project I haven't started. I haven't started coding anything. So the activity name is the XML file. Right now,
So
what is
Shivra,
the name?
this looks pretty complicated for somebody who has just started with Python. So is there some autocomplete feature which happens so that you don't need to remember all these things?
Uh, so yes, Android it does let you autocomplete.
So can you
Let's
just
say
do this part again, project creation again, so that I know to see want.
so. I haven't written any code yet.
Oh,
This
so
is just the default
this is a preloaded
starter
thing.
code that is given. We'll be removing all of this and writing our own code,
So
and
this
that then we
part
can.
was preloaded when you created the project, is it?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
So all of this is preloaded. All of this is just with that empty views activity. This is the app. So right now I have my phone connected here, and if I run the app, I'll just see this hello world screen. I'm not going to see anything. I've not started writing code yet. So when we do start writing, I'll show you how to autocomplete. Um, I think if you do have, I think a Gemini account set up with Android Studio, it also helps you autocomplete entire functions, and it's good enough. But I wouldn't recommend doing that. Uh, okay, yeah. So I'm working with a slightly older version of Android Studio. This wouldn't happen in a newer version. Um, so I just need to change a few versions here. So Android Studio errors are completely normal. If you do get it, that's okay. You should be able to work with it as well. I have the, I'm gonna copy it from my
What is a TOML file?
TOML file is a file that helps you set the versions of all the dependencies you're using. So Kotlin version, Kotlin also you don't have to explicitly install it. It comes with Android Studio, so you can. Oh my, Android Studio. Um,
Again, we have lost your screen.
yeah, my Android Studio just um, closed unexpectedly. Just a second. I'll reopen it. So, UML file, you can mention the versions of all the dependencies you're using: Java version, Kotlin version, Core TX version, Compose version.
But
Um,
earlier, before Kotlin arrived on the screen, I don't remember this name. It was something else, I think. App dot
which name?
properties. I mean, the dot .toml was not there before Kotlin arrived on the scene. I think. When we were doing Android development
We
using
have
Java,
we always have build.gradle also,
um,
or gradle.properties, or those have always been there.
yeah, but that
Lib.version.toml have
mm,
also been there, but we've never played around with it enough to realize unless you face any environment issues is only when you have to touch it. Otherwise, I would not recommend uh, changing it. Uh,
so what you did was you just created a project and you ran it and you got a hello world automatically, right?
if you choose the project called empty views, but if you choose a
Empty
different
views.
project, it's going to be slightly different XML.
Yeah. So just tell me whether this is the correct empty views template. Huh? Okay.
Empty views activity.
Empty views activity. Okay. Yeah, your screen is still not visible. Maybe it's intentional. Hmm.
Yeah, 100 today is still loading. Just a second. Mm, yeah. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yes, we can see your
There
screen now.
was an ID error. So, we were facing a build error. So that happens in the version catalog. So this is where we're going to be changing a few versions. Um, some of the things you just try with every version and then see which one works. Honestly, it also depends on the compatibility of your phone versus your laptop and things like that. And it's normal to get these errors. So, and for these environment setup issues, I would recommend going on to Google and ChatGPT. Sometimes it just helps take out, like, eases out that process. I have it already written on my other projects. I'm just gonna. So the reason why I'm not going into this is you might not face the same issue. It's so so any of this in the left tab, if you can see, I hope everyone can see my screen. We have the app and then the Gradle scripts. So Gradle scripts are basically what are deciding how you want to set up your environment. So any files that you change in this build or Gradle, ProGuard rules or anything, you always need to after that sync the project and not just run it without syncing it. It's not going to pull these dependencies in or anything. So now that it was able to successfully build, I'm going to try running the app and we shouldn't run into that issue. Um, this, just to give an overview, this is how Android Studio looks. If here, there are a lot of buttons here. The two buttons you need to be aware of is one is the sync project with Gradle files. As soon as you don't have to sync it every time, only if you change any Gradle scripts. And the first time you build a project ever, sync project with Gradle files. Otherwise, you don't have to do it. Second is the run button that is usually here, run app. Once you click on run, it's going to start building the app and then it's going to, let me show you. Let me show you. So build successful and it's opened up the app called Hello and with a screen called Hello World. We have not started writing any code or anything. So this is the empty views activity that I was talking about. So we're gonna sorry. Now we're gonna start working with the XML file first. So the XML file always lies in res resources layout and activity underscore main.xml. These are things that you're going to feel like it's going to come to you intuitively. Don't worry too much. So you always have side by side views of the code that you've written. Second is how it looks on the screen. Most of the times, it's always it's pretty reliable as to what you're writing and what is being rendered onto the screen. But it's not going to show what happens when you click on things. Okay. So we're going to be working with, as I mentioned, the unit converter app. So we have, so this layout, as you can see, is called a linear layout. Here they're using, so there are different types of layouts. We're not going to get into all of that yet. Here they're using something called a constraint layout. We're going to stick to something a little more simple for today. We're going to remove all of this and we're going to see autocomplete as well here. So you always need the version and the encoding. So as you can see, it already autocompletes. And if I click on linear layout, it fills the mandatory fields that you need for any section. As HTML tags, it always needs a opening and closing tag. Does anyone want to?
So there is a
I see.
question on the chat. Can this same XML be reused in another activity?
same named XML or same structured XML. So each UI component will have only one activity attached to it. Same structured, yes. Same file, then you'll face issues when we're trying to render it because each activity is going to render a certain XML. You can always reuse the activity. So when, let's say, again on some other screen, you want to call the same XML, you want the certain, so always make the XML as template as possible and write the sort of more specific things in your activity that these are the names, kilometers to miles can be USD to INR. It can have the same XML. We're just not going to write kilometer to miles in the XML. We'll write it in the activity directly, and the different activity will still call the same XML but have a different name to it. So I would say always have a template XML and then you can reuse it. I would and make it more customized in the activity. So we're gonna so this linear layout is going to be the parent, the root of your entire app. So in hierarchy, this is going to be the main parent. So you should understand XML treats everything as a hierarchy tree. And so this is our full screen within which the heading is one thing, the text is one thing, the radio buttons are one thing. So all of them are views within that. So it's like a tree format. So this is the dad of everything. So this is the parent. So the parent view always needs to have this line. It's almost just symbolical. You have to have this line of XMLNS Android. Excuse me, sorry. So once you put Android, you'll have to put. Sorry. So we had layout width. It's required, as you said. So we're going to match parent and layout height. So when we say match parent, it just means that match the font size or match the parent view. So right now the parent view is the phone screen size itself. So here we are just saying that match it to the parent view. So next we're going to say orientation. Right now we want it to be only vertical. If we were having a landscape kind of app, then it would be horizontal, and how we wanted to place our views would be horizontal. Um, and we're going to now if I just run this, it's going to stick to the ends of the app. Here, as you can see, there is some space on each end, so we're going to give it some padding of, let's say, um, it's always in DP. DP is similar to pixels. Um, so we're going to give it 24 DP. I'm not sure what I gave it there. So now we have the linear layout, that is the parent of the app. Next, what we have is the text view for the heading. So that's called a text view. Sorry. So again, the width I wanted to probably, sorry, there are two options. As I said, match parent is one. The second one is wrap content. Wrap content is just match it to how much the content takes up space. So width, I wanted to match parent that I wanted to go throughout it. But height, I wanted to just use the space that it requires. It doesn't need to take up the entire. So that's going to be called wrap content. So now we're going to say what is the text that's going to go into it. So that's called text. And we're going to be using something. If anyone thinks of a better name for it while we're doing this, feel free to tell me. I'd like a better name. After this, you can always go into text size. So an ideal would be something, we can go into SP. Then we can go into, let's say I wanted to be slightly bigger. We did the text size. We wanted to be center aligned. So when we do center aligned, we always use something called actually layout gravity, something called gravity, and this is going to make it center aligned. And let's say I want it to be bold. Sorry, that'll be style. So that'll be actually text style. So these are things you don't really need to start by hearting. You'll start enjoying it as and when you do it. You can. So now that we see, we have it rendered here on the right. So now we know, okay, 24 DC. This is the text, it's bold. Do we want it bigger? Then we can make it into, let's say, 30 SP. So it's big enough. Do I like it on my phone? Yes. I don't want, yeah. So this is how it's going to be looking on my phone, and I'm happy about it. So now we're going to be going on to the. Feel free to stop me anywhere, or if you can't see. And if you want me to repeat anything, let me know. So next we're going to be going into the text view where we're going to be inputting any text. So that is called the edit text. Again, required width and height. So edit text, can someone tell the width of it and the height of it? Would it be matched by range wrap content? If anyone can, just write MPWC, or if you want to unmute and do it. So the edit text width, as you can see on the screen, if you can still see my phone, it is still the end to end of the phone. And if it, the height is just as much as it requires for that text. So, um, so the width is always going to be match parent. That means match the phone size. Height is going to be wrap content. Not always, sorry. For the edit text, this is what we're going to be doing. Now we also want, like, now we want to make sure that when I click on this, we only want a number keypad. We don't want a QWERTY keypad to be shown. So that is when we go into something called the input type. So input type is, right now we're going to keep it to number. We can also have number decimal because we don't mind having dot, a decimal point in the keyboard. We don't just take whole numbers. And then we can have like a hint. Let's say hint is entered input. So this is what is going to come when we don't have any value. So here we have enter value, we have enter input. So here, as we can see, this has come in. We have the enter input. I would like some space between the two, so I'm going to go with something called margin top. I'm going to give it 10 dp. Yeah, I think I'm happy with the space that it has, and we're going to close this. Anything else? Sorry. So we have the edit text. Now we have the radio buttons. So the radio buttons are can be called using a radio group. So a radio group is the place where we have the set of radio buttons, and within which we'll have something called the radio buttons, which we already saw. Again, we have the width and the height that is necessary. Yeah. So in the height width, we're going to have match parent. Height, we're going to have wrap content. Also, a very important thing I forgot to write here is every part that needs to be interactable with your Kotlin code or the activity has to have an ID. Otherwise, Kotlin is not going to be able to understand on click of what should I do. So it needs to find an ID and do it. So for the edit text, we're going to give an ID, and that always has to start with plus ID, and we're going to call it, let's say, input. And yeah, here we wanted to have an ID as well, and this is going to be selected as actually the radio group doesn't particularly, it can actually, we're going to select it as unit selector. So we have this. So here within this, we're going to have radio buttons, right? So we're gonna have radio button. Hmm, okay, that's because layout height to layout width needs to be. So layout height, that is layout height is going to be wrap content, layout width, wrap content. For ID, so the first ID is going to be kilometer to miles. So km to mi. Um, so we have the, as you can see, a radio button came in. We need to have a text for it. So we're gonna have kilometers. We're gonna let's do freedom units to miles to kilometers this time. So miles to kilometers. And now we have the radio button, if you can see on the right. We're gonna have similarly, we're gonna have three. So the reason why these are giving a yellow line is because ideally, Android doesn't recommend having hard coded strings here. It would recommend you having a string variable stored in a XML file and then use that variable. This is usually used when you want to make your app more friendly to like localization, that is changing language. So this should be available in Kannada, Telugu, French, German, Spanish. That's when you can always mention that this string always translates to this in Kannada. So without that, it's going to be always hard coded to English. So it's not always, it's not ideal, but we, for now, we're going to stick with just hard coding. Again, radio button ID. Next is the kilograms to pounds. So I'm gonna say lbs to kgs. Right? Um, Next we're gonna have the. mm oh yeah, it's going to give us an. Oh sorry, layout height is going to be wrap content. This is going to be. Um, Text is going to be uh, pounds to kilograms. And finally, one radio button for um, ID with what was the other one? Celsius to Fahrenheit. F to C. So Fahrenheit to Celsius. Layout height is again wrap content. Width, width is match parent. And text is Celsius. Always you can go in here and refactor. Okay, it still hasn't opened. Oops. What if we set target to small? Okay. Let's see. I don't think this is an error because we don't see a red line here, but let's see. Um, you can always refactor the file because Android allows you to automatically do it very easily. You know, we're not writing it. So, button, we're going to finally have a button that helps you write the convert. So, again, we're going to have the same thing, which is we're going to say match parent, wrap content. We're going to have an ID for the button um, that is convert or submit. It can be anything. Um, and we're going to have text to the button. That is, we're going to be calling it convert. And then we're going to, yeah, I think this is how. I'm okay with the. We have the ID, we have the text, we have everything. Maybe we can have some space between the two. So we're going to use something called margin top, and I'm going to add. So I think this looks better. And then finally, we're going to have a text view for the result. So that's going to be a non-editable. Otherwise, we would use something called edit text. So as ID, sorry, width is transparent, draft content. ID would be, sorry, ID would be um, result. And let's say if I want some default text to be already there, I can say converted result or will appear here. Here, if anyone has any input as to if I wanted to be center aligned, what would I use? Center aligned horizontally. Does anyone have any um, idea? Until then, I'm going to just do the. So we use something called gravity, if you remember. That was for basically alignment. Um, so we're going to be using gravity center, and that center aligns it. Let's say we want some space here, margin top, NDP. Uh, let's say I want it to be bold. Any input on what we can use? We can use style and makes it. So what we're going to do in the Kotlin part is going to be using this ID when we do the conversion, replace this ID text with the text that we calculate. So that's why we desperately need an ID here. So right now, if I run this code, what do you think will happen? Will this UI get rendered onto the screen? And if it does, will I be able to like do the conversion as we are doing it? Oh, oh, we don't need this section. This is for. So we have the unit converter that we just built right now with everything. Maybe we should add a margin on top of the text so that it doesn't stick to the top. But right now, choosing this or clicking on this, nothing's going to happen. Let's say I enter a value um, and convert, nothing's going to happen because we haven't written any of the Kotlin logic that does the conversion itself. So, but we were able to render the XML, which is a good start. So now we're going to move on to the activity file. The activity file is the important part. They have the logic. So here we have the on create. As I mentioned, on create is a function that gets called every time the screen is first time rendered. It doesn't get so this is where it's telling the Android operating system that on the rendering of screen, this is what I wanted to do. So let's say we wanted to in the background get an API data. We'll always do it on create and then let it fetch. And then when we click on it, it should automatically look like I never used an API. There's no network connectivity required. So here we're going to use something. I'm going to remove this. So here we're going to use something called uh, find view by ID. That's why we had the ID. I'm just going to add this margin top for the unit converter text. Right? So it's sticking a little bit to the top. Yeah. Just while we do that, we're going to use something called find view by ID. That is, we have the text editor, we have the radio button, we have everything. We're going to be finding view by ID. So now it looks like the cleaner, I guess. So on create, let's declare all views that we have created. So let's say I have the input, like let's say it's the input text view, right? So input text is going to be find view by ID. So it's what kind of view is it? So it's an edit text and r.id dot, we named it input, right? So this is input text. Next is the radio buttons that we have. So the each radio button has an ID, but it has to be selected radio button. So uh, we're gonna select unit selected is equal to find view by ID. What kind of uh, view is it? It's called the radio group, and I forgot what I named it. R.id dot unit selector. Yeah. And next we have the convert button. And again, find view by ID. What kind of is this? It's a button, and it's called r.id.convert. And finally, we have the result uh, text, that is find view by ID. It is a text view and r.id.result. What's it called? Yeah, we named it result. So yeah. So now we have uh, like now Kotlin knows what are these things. It has found the views by the ID, and now we can play around with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a listener to this button. So we need to remember that Android app is very event driven. It has to respond to a click or a swipe or a gesture. So what we're going to do is we're going to have something called a listener. So that's going to be like an on-click listener. We can have a double click, we can have a swipe, we can have everything, but for now we're going to have, so it's called the convert button, right? So convert button dot set on click listener. Yeah. So it's just going to be a basic function. So this is where this is equivalent to what a function would look like. So on the click of the listener, what do you want it to do, right? So let's say we want to get the input that is there in that. So that's going to be input text dot text is what the user has put, and we're going to put it to string. So um, here we can have any kind of validation where if the input is empty, then show a red text below it, we can show a toast. In the older app, I did put a toast where if the input is empty, then send a toast, something like that. So now we have the input value that they've selected. Next is the, actually we can just put it to double. So it's going to initially, so we have to double. It should be this way. Yeah. So we need to type to double cannot work with just a value that doesn't have a type. To string and then to double. Now we get the what is the radio button that they have selected. So it's called, so selected option will be something called units selected dot check radio button ID. So this is going to be the ID. So that is going to be 0, 1, 2. Always, if you want to again do a validation, -1 means that there is an error here, that the user has not selected anything. By default, it's going to be -1. So we're going to put a when, um, so selected option. So a when loop will like, um, we're going to have in Kotlin, it's going to be like a switch case. So when it is zero, one, two, then what should be the what should be the behavior of it. So we're gonna say now here it's going to be the ID name that we've already given. If we didn't, then it would be number. So ID dot, let's say it was first miles to kilometers. Then what do we do? This is the function here. Meanwhile, can someone Google and tell me the put it in the chat the conversion calculation for miles to kilometers, kgs to pounds. Actually, it should be pounds to kg since we're doing 18 minutes to. We're gonna just and the our Fahrenheit to Celsius. If you can just put the formula here in the chat, that'd be great. So pounds to lbs to kg. We have that. Okay. So we have it's like a switch case that we might see in Python. So we're gonna have our dot id dot pounds to kgs, and this is what we want to do when the user selects pounds to kgs, and we have our dot id dot um, Fahrenheit to Celsius. Um, yeah. So this is where we're going to be calculating. Is anyone doing that, or I think does anyone have access to the message? Meanwhile, I'm gonna create a function. So we're gonna create a function called output. So currently we're gonna just set it to 0.0, and as we calculate it, we're gonna change it. So one important thing to note in Kotlin is we have two types of variables. One is var, one is val. So val means it cannot be mutated. It cannot be the value cannot be changed in the entirety of the app. So if I set a pi value, it's always going to be val. So that value will never change. Var is a variable. So it's like constant versus variables. Var is a variable that where the value can change over the course of the app. So here, since output is a value that we're going to be, what do we say, finding out, we're going to be calculating, we're going to be using a var variable. So let me just pull up the uh, calculation for miles to kilometers, the exact. So kilometers is equal to miles into 1.609344. So we're gonna say when it's miles to kilometers, output becomes the input into, this is something I copied off the internet, and we're gonna have that value here. When it's pounds to kgs, let's say lbs to kgs formula, lbs by 2.2. So here output will become input by 2.2. And finally, Fahrenheit to Celsius. Does anyone remember this formula? F minus 32 into 5 by 9. You should be remembering this. So output is equal to F minus 32 into 5 by 9. So this is going to be our output here. And just at the end of it, we're just going to set the output text to your result, and let's see how it works. So on the click of listener, after the when is completed, the when gets completed here, we're going to set the result text dot text is equal to result would be our now if we have to use a variable within a text, we use the dollar sign. So that's going to be our output.
Hello, I can't hear anything. Hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Did I miss? Did you miss all of it, or
Yes, I think we missed the last part.
um? Yeah. Let me. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes,
Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know why. And you can still see my screen, right?
yes,
Okay. Um. So we have the main activity written up now, where we have the button where we have set a click listener, where we have a when like a switch statement. Just a second. Yeah, not sure why. Yeah. So while it runs, we have a switch statement for when we select this radio button. What is the calculation? When we select the LBs to kgs radio button, what is the calculation? Fahrenheit to Celsius button, what is the calculation? And finally, we have the text for the text that we will be showing here instead of the converted result. So that's what we're doing here. Whenever we're using a variable within a string, we always in Kotlin follow it with a dollar. Otherwise, it's always going to show it like as if it is just output. So dollar means that I'm specifying a variable after that. So let's see if this works. I run the app. I'm going to input, let's say, 6 miles to kilometers, and we're going to select convert. Okay. Yeah, no, that's wrong. Why are we getting output as 0? Let's see. So when selected option miles to kilometers, uh, okay, let's try that. Try something else. Okay, first of all, why are we allowing multiple? Interesting. R dot ID dot miles to kilometers, R dot ID dot LB to kgs, Fahrenheit to Celsius, and let's see our activity main again. Um, let's see. So in our activity main, we have the radio button, the radio group, which is the unit selector. Um, mm, so we have the unit selected dot checked radio button ID, which should handle the selected, but why is it not? Let's see. If it changes, we should be handling it there. This is not going to be. So every time the checked radio button ID changes, it should be recalculating it and then in showing our output. So let's see if it should ideally let us only select radio button. So ideally radio button only allows us to select one. Let's see why we're going wrong. Um, so let's go back into our activity main just to make sure we have everything right. So we have the radio group, which is our unit selector. Um, then we have a radio button within each radio group. Actually, we shouldn't be ending it here, and we should have a close of radio group here. That was a mess. So here I had slash, what do we say, a closing tag here. Ideally, this should not, yeah. So now we're only able to select one. So a closing tag here at the radio group was the mistake that we were making. So let's see now if it works. Um, 20 miles to kilometers, and we see the value. So if I can just Google it, 20 miles to kilometers, 32.1869. Um, and let's say someone weighs 180 pounds, 2 kilograms, that means they're 81 kgs. Fahrenheit to Celsius, so for example, right now it is about 73 Fahrenheit in where I'm living right now. That means, okay, Fahrenheit to Celsius didn't work as expected. Let's see why. I'm gonna help you see how to use a debugger. So a debugger helps you stop exactly where the line is hit. This is called a debugger line where I'm setting it. And we'll see what the line. So I Fahrenheit to Celsius, I've input 73 and I click on convert. As you can see, nothing happens here because it stopped the program and shown me input is 73, but the output is 0. Is the calculation wrong? So 73 minus 32 into 5 by 9. Am I missing something here? Um, 73. That should have worked. 73 minus 32 into 5 by 9. Why is the output still... F to C is the correct. Yes. And let's see what might be going wrong. So somewhere the calculation, did we typecast it to double? Yes, we did. Then so how we expect it to work. Oh yeah, so yeah. So when we divide a 5 by 9, it becomes a less than 0 integer. So that by default, because they consider themselves as whole number, like integers, it's going to consider it as 0. So what we're going to have to do, so that's why, because input minus 32 into 5 by 9 becomes 0, because this considers it as 0. So we're going to be doing, let me just open up the calculator and see what the 5 by 9 value is. So 5 by 9 is 0.555. So let us do 0.5555. And let me run this again. Hopefully this solves it. Unless I specifically mention that it needs to be a double, it's not going to calculate it. It's just going to round it off. So it's 73, 74 right now, let's say. Fahrenheit is Celsius, and it's 23 degrees Celsius that we have right now. So this is, I think, the first starter app that we did today. We're almost at the end of the session as well. If anyone has any questions about the code we wrote today, please do let me know. Basically, we created a new project with an empty views activity. We have the XML file, we have the activity file. XML file is going to be just what your screen is going to show. So we created a text view, we created a edit text, that's the input controller, and radio buttons to select what units, and a final submit button and the result text. So this, as we first ran it, doesn't do anything on its own, but it's only going to be showing what is rendered. And then the activity is going to tell how the OS, what happens when the screen is opened up. And the second thing is what logic should happen on click of every button. So on click of this convert, get the text from here, get the radio button from here, calculate it, and then show me the text here. So it was a pretty simple app we started off with. We did face a few issues, but anyone has any questions? I'm going to be putting this on GitHub as well. and all of you can run it, but I would recommend trying to write it on your own, even having the GitHub open. Does anyone have any questions?
No, good. Thanks, Shubhra. I think it was pretty good.
Sure,
Any
anyone?
questions, please? So that was a good observation. 5 by 9 gave a 0 default, right? Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. That was a mistake on my part.
Yeah.
Or we could always, if we're not very sure, like we would not want 0.555 because it's not the most accurate. We typecast into a double and make sure 5.0 by 9.0 would. Let's try that actually, just quickly before we go. So let's say I do 5.0 by 9.0. It's going to consider this as a double, and it's going to give us the right value if my understanding is right. So now it is 75 Fahrenheit to Celsius, and it gave us the right value. So because we haven't set the typecast, it does it on its own. Any any other questions? Any other? Please, I would
We should learn Kotlin and XML to write the code, is it?
I would recommend learning a few things about Kotlin. Kotlin is very similar to any other coding language except 5 points that I've mentioned it in the setup guide. Let me share that setup guide. Um, XML is something you don't really need to focus on learning a lot right now. You will slowly build up like the understanding of it. But Kotlin, yes, but I think Android app development is a good project to get started to learn Kotlin. Um, so let me share. What's the So in Kotlin, I would recommend going through these concepts. So as we mentioned, we went through variable and val functions. Here in Kotlin, the way we write functions is slightly more different. The good thing is Android Studio helps you auto complete a lot of things. So you'll start off by the end of 5 days. I think you'll get a hang of if you try to code here along with me. You will get a hang of how to write functions, how to do certain things. When loop is something we saw right now. We'll talk about null safety soon. Data classes, it's very similar to Python as well. It's classes and objects. List, map, and set we'll see. And coroutines. Coroutines is something in Kotlin, but it's very specific to Android OS. Like, sorry. Android OS lifecycle management. So we'll get into that soon. But just get an idea of it. Since all of you have some experience with coding, it's not going to be difficult to pick up.
Okay, thank you. I think it's now 9:30. I would like to close the
Yeah.
session. Let me call out the names: Shrestha, Sharda, Shraddha, Dhyan, Anushri, Spurti, Kishan, Pranati, Shiveni, Purvi, Pranesh, Balaji. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Shraddha, Shubhra. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Please try to set up. Sorry, not to take another minute. Let me put in my email ID here. If you guys face any issue with setting up, please feel free to send me an email. And if you have the time, or if you're running through, if you're facing a problem, let me know if you want to join 15 minutes earlier and debug on how to set up your environment. But yeah, thanks everyone. Sorry about the late classes, but I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Shubhra. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.